Isaiah.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi. What song is on your mind right now?
I don't have a song on my mind right now.
I have that Some Cut. Who is it by?
Trillville?
Yeah, What It Is, ho?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's on my mind. But yeah. So, what's with this accent? Where does your accent come from?
Accent?
Yes. Where does your accent come from? Or where do you...
I am from New Mexico.
Yeah.
I don't know where my accent comes from.
You don't feel like you have an accent, but
No, not necessarily.
to others it does seem or appear that way.
I guess so.
Yeah. And do you think being Navajo adds to it? Your accent or the way you speak?
Probably.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was that like? And you were born on the reservation?
Mm-hmm.
So you're a dual citizen, if you will?
I guess that's one way to look
Is
at
that
it.
a technicality?
I'm not sure how that you describe that, but I'm definitely enrolled in the Navajo Nation
Okay.
tribal stuff, and I have a social security number.
Okay. And growing up, this is an assumption, you didn't have a lot of money. That's usually a hand-in-hand thing with someone that grows up on a reservation. For a lot of people, is that correct?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think that affected the way you view money?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I've never been rich to know what another person with money thinks about money, and how their relationship is to money. That's like a very personal thing, I feel. However, I don't think it matters if you grow up rich or you grow up poor. I think however you view money is an internal thing. You could grow up rich and wind up poor, and you could grow up poor and wind up rich. So like, I don't think that necessarily has anything to do with where you come from or the money that you've seen.
Okay. Was there a lot of stresses about money growing up?
I think for my parents, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't stressed about
Of
money at all.
You're like, la la la, this is all I know.
Yeah.
So the kids you grew up around were in the same situation?
I don't know. I'm assuming so. I didn't grow up in great neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But also, like, there were times in my life we didn't have enough money to even buy new school clothes, and the other kids would make fun of me because I didn't have new school clothes. So I don't know, like,
where they were at
financially.
Just, I mean, in retrospect, like looking back now, knowing what you know.
Yeah.
Do you think, is there a specific side of your family that pattern stays more on with that financial stuff? Is there, or is it on both sides of your family?
That's a weird question to ask
Yeah.
on record. I don't know how I feel about answering that on
You don't
record.
have to answer. Wow, that threw me off, but that's all right. So how did not having school clothes affect your life now that you're older? How do you think that's affected you? Or new school clothes, I should clarify.
I don't know, that's hard to dig into because I think in some ways, like, it affected me as a child, but now as an adult, like, I don't necessarily care about having new school clothes,
Yeah.
if you will. Like, there's multiple facets to that because I didn't grow up with money, so there's still this relationship with like needing to prioritize other things. And so when I'm shopping for certain things, like I'll try to look for discounts, or if I don't really need it, I'm not gonna buy it. I will look. I like to look. I like to shop, but like internally, there's always this piece of me that's like, oh well, if I spend this money on this, then later on I'm gonna be hurting because
where the scales are.
Yeah, but also like there's this piece of me that I like to look good. I like to look clean. I like to have nice clothes. So I don't know exactly where all that balances out and comes from. I know like it is a piece of who I am, but as far as like not having new school clothes, like I don't think I carry that with me as a burden.
That could just come out in the way of like, it is important for you to have, if you do have something, it's gonna be nice.
See, that's the weird thing, not necessarily, because there are things that I buy on a budget and like, they are what they are, like they serve their purpose. I do like nice things, I do like to have those things, but a lot of times I have work clothes or sweats or things that I buy from clearance that I'm like, oh, that's nice, I can take that and make that last. Like I said, I don't know where the balance in that comes in. I really don't.
What do you think growing up in that environment made you more resilient?
More resilient than
like to stresses and more creative maybe on how to make things work?
I don't know, that goes back to like the relationship of money. I can't really base somebody else's relationship to money against mine, or I can't base somebody else's resilience against mine. I can't base somebody else's creativity to mine. And those kinds of things are very subjective, and like in the eye of the beholder, like something that I think is creative, another person might look at and be like, what is that? That's a waste of time. That's a waste of whatever. That doesn't mean anything to me. But another person could look at it and want to pay $1 million for it. Like, that's resilience too. I think resilience is in everybody. Like we're all here, we're all breathing, we're all living. Like you're gonna get through whatever you're gonna get through. Whatever life throws at you, like there's no, I couldn't put my resilience on the scale next to somebody else and say that mine is greater or less than. I can say that I have a resilience, and whether that comes from my childhood or my adulthood, like there are a lot of things that happened in my life that I had no control over. And so is it resilience to go through that and make it and come out better on the other side, or is that just life? And maybe like living through those things has given me that perspective that there's always something on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Today, yeah, there's something hard, there's stuff that you gotta deal with, or things that you might be stressed out about. But for me, like long-term stresses today, you're stressed about something that could happen tomorrow, but in the basis of time, like that stress isn't gonna be the same stress tomorrow. And maybe for some people it is, but like I understand that I could be stressed out today and I want what I want today. Like, let's just say your vehicle breaks down on the way to work. Like in that moment, you're gonna be stressed out about the fact that you need to be at work. That's like you're not worried about the car necessarily. Like it sucks, like, and that's a part of the stress. But your main focus is gonna be the fact that you gotta get to work because you have obligations, whatever you, how are you gonna make the money to pay? Like all these things are gonna start playing in. But as time passes, like 2 days down the road, when you're at work and the car still broke down, like you're not gonna be stressed out at work because your car's broke down. You're gonna be in life doing life things, and then you'll get back to that. So like, why allow that stress to fill your aura? Like you'll get to it when you get to it.
Have you met people that have had a similar upbringing that react differently, or do they have similar like thought processes, ways of thinking, or do you think that's just a you thing, or even like friends, cousins, or whatever that react differently to situations such as, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pay my light bill, or that type of thing, those stresses that come up. Have you met people that react differently, or is it pretty much the same?
I'm not sure I've met very many people who grew up the way that I grew up. I don't think that's like a regular everyday thing for normal people. I don't think that's, I'm not saying I'm the only one, because I've definitely, like the way I grew up and the things that happened to me, they were pretty public in a sense. And so I know that there were other kids in similar situations to the situations that I was in, because I was in those situations. I do think as far as the way they react, I can't say how, like, would they react. I guess in certain situations they probably would react the same way that I would, due to like the stigma that comes with that, due to the mentality that comes from that. Like that's always gonna be a piece of who you are, and that's hard to change. And so you have two different questions there. Like, have I met people who react and think? Like thinking and reacting are two different things. They could think the way that I think, and they could understand, or their thought process could, but the way that they react could be a whole different thing. Especially when in terms of stressing about, for instance, a light bill, like what, going all the way to not being able to afford new school clothes. Like what if you can't afford the light bill? And not only can you not afford the light bill, but like you don't have anything to look forward to. You don't have, like, that's it. That's the last straw. That was like, that's the thing that breaks you, and now you feel like you have to do everything in your power to get that light bill paid. And maybe that light bill needs to be paid not for yourself, but like, what if you have a baby sister and you don't want her to go without electricity or whatever, that like you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what that person's gonna do. That's a different kind of stress, and that's like the reactions could be whatever.
And that opens a whole other jar of worms. There is being in that desperate situation and what people are willing to do for money, and where they draw the line and things of that sort. And if it's a recurring thing, I assume and this is just an assumption, I haven't been in this situation, but it pushes you to more desperate measures and extremes or whatever. This is just my assumption, of course.
I get, like, I don't. Those things are hard because different people have different motives for different reasons.
Yes.
Some people are malicious and some people are not malicious. And I think that's just in nature itself. Like, you can't change that. Some things are just predators and some things are prey.
That's true. You've mentioned to me before that you like to do things that are hard and difficult. And do you think that's part of your upbringing? Because you've mentioned to me, like, you like to push yourself. You know that a lot of people would prefer to do upper body day than legs at the gym, and you want to push yourself to do the hardest thing. Does that correlate with your upbringing, or is that just something of your personality? Or both?
Maybe a piece of, maybe it is both. I think somewhere in my life I see life in patterns. I see people in patterns. I see, like, it's like everything has a pattern. The universe has a pattern. Everything has a pattern to it. And I've, like, watched, and the pattern typically is that the hardest things get pushed off until last, and the easiest things they get chosen first because they're easier tasks and you don't have to stress, you don't have to work. It's the easiest things to do. But you wear yourself out doing the little things, and then by the time you get to the big thing, the pattern seems to be that gets brushed to the side or pushed to somebody else, or whatever the case may be. And in my head, I think that if you do the hardest thing first, then it's easier to do the less things as you get more tired. So, like, you're just in life as a pattern, things are more efficient for you if you do the harder things first, because that's the thing that's going to take the most energy. That's the thing that's going to take the most sacrifice. And so instead of using up your energy and your sacrifices on a bunch of little things, you use it all on the big thing at first. And then when you're in your lower energy state, you can tackle the little things and you don't have to stress about
having that pending hard thing to do.
So just get it over with.
How have you pushed yourself in those moments to do the thing that's not desirable? What have you found to be motivating for you, or how do you get yourself to that, to do the thing?
I don't know if I can cuss or anything,
Yeah, go for it.
But, like, I honestly think that you just gotta get the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Go. Do it. It's as simple as that. Like there's no more to it. There's no less to it. Like I said, the world happens in patterns, and that seems to be the pattern. And for me, I see the pattern is if you do it first when you have more energy and you have more strength, like your will is at its highest. So it makes no sense to me to do the lesser thing with the highest amount of will and take the hardest thing with the lowest amount of will. Like it doesn't just do the shit. Like I know it's gonna suck regardless. So like you might as well do it when your strength is at its peak, when your will is at its peak, and get the fuck over it. Like that's just the way I see it.
Simply what you're saying is don't be a baby.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And did that mindset come from anybody you observed growing up, or how did that come about for you, do you believe?
I'm not sure. Like in my head right now, I'm correlating it to my dad. He's always been a heavy drinker, but he doesn't take days off. Like and I know now that I've gotten older and I've gone through drinking phases, and I know what that feels like. Like he gets up and he does it no matter what. He doesn't care, and that doesn't stop him. And so like I've just always felt like if he can do it, then I can do it. Like if he can get up and push through whatever he's pushing through, then I can push through it too. And I also have a similar, like I don't know if it's like judging myself against other people or whatever, but sometimes if I see somebody else doing something, then I'm like, oh, like if they can do it, I can do it too. Like, and maybe that's pride, but it carries me through.
Yeah. It, in a weird way, sometimes comparison does help.
Yeah.
Or at least getting that proof that it can be done. That does help. Or I don't know where I was going to go after that, but oh yes, where do you find positivity or glimmers of hope, or how do you get to that point, like when things are looking really bleak and stressful and dark, how do you find this, in your darkest times or whatever? What has helped you find hope and keep pushing and not give up? Or
I don't know, maybe it comes back to that mentality of knocking out the hardest task first. Like I can see things, all patterns on all levels. So like even at your highest scale, like if you're in a dark time, yeah, you're going through a dark time, and it might last a day, couple days, couple weeks, couple months, couple years. Like you don't necessarily know, but either way, like time is gonna crisscross how it crisscrosses, and so you just gotta get the hardest thing done. And like even if you're having a hard 2 years, you're gonna have good moments in those 2 years. So like how do you say, like let's say you're traveling across the country from Nebraska to California. I think that's far enough. You'll probably see 5 or 6 different terrains, and you could start in Nebraska mid-January in a blizzard, driving for 3 hours on ice in an ice storm. And within 7 or 8 hours, you can be in West New Mexico, East Arizona, and it's going to be dry and it's going to be warm. And 2 hours from there, 3 hours from there, you could be in the mountains again where it's snowing, or it could be raining, and it's going to suck. You might be in a thunderstorm. 4 hours from there, you could be in the desert at 130 degrees. And a few hours from there, you could be on the beach in shorts, flip-flops, whatever you desire, in a nice cool breeze, your feet in some cool water, and you could travel all that distance in a day, or whatever, however people deal with that. But it's possible to do that within a 24-hour period. When you're traveling through the ice storm on I-80 or whatever you're traveling on, like, you're gonna get scared, especially if you lose a little bit of traction and you're moving 65, 70 miles an hour. Like, you're gonna get nervous, and yeah, it doesn't feel good. But if you keep going, like, it's not gonna be icy forever. Just like when you're going through the hot desert at 130, like, it's not gonna be that way forever. And you can do all this and you can see all this in a day. That's one day. So if you take a 2-year period and you're just tackling that project, like, you gotta be able to understand that you're doing that, and you gotta get it over with. And in that, like, you gotta stop and just appreciate the fact that the ice made you scared. Because now that you're not on the ice, you wouldn't be as joyful and comfortable, or in that comfort of not being on the ice, it wouldn't be such a relief. And then a few hours later, you're going through the thunderstorm and the rain again, and, like, you could hydroplane, whatever. It's gonna be a struggle. You're gonna get worried, you're gonna stress. But a few minutes down the road, like, it's gonna be okay again. And the end goal is the beach. So, like, if you believe that for yourself and you know you could get there, then what's gonna stop me?
Well, what happens if you get a flat tire when you're in the ice storm?
You gotta fix it.
What if you fix it and then that's flat?
I don't know. I tend not to think that way. I think that's I don't know the right word for it, but if you think that you're gonna suffer defeat, then you're gonna suffer defeat, and that's just kind of how that cookie crumbles. Because that's what you're gonna see, is the defeat. But if you see the beach at the end, like, that's what you're gonna see. That's what you want to see. And that goes back to resilience, like, whatever. If that's what you want and that's how you're gonna get there, it might take some time, it might have some setbacks, you might get a couple flat tires, you might run out of gas, whatever, and that's gonna happen. That's life. Shit happens. But do you focus on that shit, or you get the fuck up, do the hardest things first, and get there? Because that's real, like, it's really that simple.
I mean, it definitely tests your discipline when it comes to thinking. Because, you know, a lot of people will, and this has just been my experience, is they catastrophize in these little moments And it's easy to get, because you've had stressful moments where things went wrong or whatever, and you want to be prepared and protected from these moments. And then that's where their brain goes, is like, oh, my car just lugged out for a second, and then, you know, they start the little spiral. And I'm assuming, you know, this is me, my opinion, is, you know, that requires a lot of discipline to not spiral into that. If that's a habit. Because a lot of people do get into the habit.
And I don't understand that. I truly don't understand that. Like, and I don't know where it comes from, but I expect the worst to happen, just like anybody else and everybody else. But I also carry the belief that tackling the hardest things first is like, that's it. I understand that hard things are going to happen. I understand there's going to be stress. I understand there's going to be worry. I understand that nobody could ever be protected. And like, you kind of just got to accept that. I guess you don't have to accept that. I accept that.
Yeah.
I just, like, it is what it is. Like, I can't, some things you can't change, some things you don't control. And when you don't control it, like, why put that stress on yourself? My grandma used to always tell me, you're gonna make yourself go gray.
Is that the Navajo grandma?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's true. I don't know if it is or not. I guess one day we'll find out, but I do believe there's no sense like going gray thinking like that or stressing like that. Because inevitably you will go gray thinking like that. And it's not a matter of like the stress is going to make you go gray. Like, you're going to stress your life away.
Yeah.
And you're going to go gray. And then what? That's another thing that you can't control. That's another thing you can't protect yourself from.
Time.
Yeah, you can try. You can take care of yourself. You can whatever, but like at the end of the day, you can't protect yourself from that. There's no amount of maintenance. There's no amount of you're gonna get there.
Would you say your theory on with aging is more of a mindset? Like, you can, and this is kind of going into this deeper disciplined thinking and mental strength. Do you think that you can, I don't know how to word this like to make sense, but like you could prevent aging by living a certain mindset?
Yeah, don't think about your age.
just don't acknowledge it.
Why should we?
I like that.
That goes into other things, like is time even real? But like that's a question and a conversation for another day. But why? Why worry about your age?
Do you think there's a lot of people that put themselves, I'm just gonna say it, like in wheelchairs and walkers, and you know, maybe even a third of their life, you know, the last third of their life in this decrepit state when they really didn't have to? Do you think that's a mentality thing, that an agreement that they've made with themselves?
I guess I'm gonna find out. I've always told myself, like, I'm gonna live to 100. I'm gonna live past 100. Like, that's just what it is. I refuse to go out any earlier. And that's me getting to my beach.
Where are you at right now? The ice storm? Or the Mojave Desert. You're in Death Valley right now.
No, I'm not that close. Not that close yet. I'm somewhere in between, like it's alright.
Yeah?
I'm just traveling along.
Yeah, lugging along.
Mm-hmm.
Sightseeing.
Sightseeing.
Nice.
There's nothing to see.
So you're in southern New Mexico is what you're saying?
Yeah, could be. Somewhere in that area.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
alright, that's fine. That's not bad.
No.
A little flat, but it'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good spot to be.
Mm-hmm.
And on that, we can go, I'd like you to, elaborate a little more on agreements and mentality with how do you live your life? How have you found, or have you ever caught yourself in agreements and beliefs that you realized they didn't resonate for you, they weren't serving you, and you shifted that? Have you ever caught yourself in that? Have you grown out of certain beliefs?
I don't know. I think I've always had like a weird willpower, like ever since I was a kid, but I do know that while I was a kid, and I don't know if it's because my dad went to prison and I looked up to him so much, like he was like an idol of mine and I wanted to be just like him, so I told myself that when I grow up, I would do that. And I did that. And I don't think I necessarily understood what that meant or what the ramifications of that were, or I completely didn't understand that. But I spoke that into my existence time and time again, and that existence came true. And so I do know, like, the things that you think and the things that you speak, they will come true. So, like, it goes back to that. Like, if you stress about it and you think you're gonna stress it, like, you're gonna stress about it. You're gonna turn gray doing it. But if you think you're gonna make it to 100, like, you're gonna make it to 100. Absolutely. And I've seen it in life.
I'm aging in reverse, so look at me, I'm great. Well, that is proof that what you believe or say, I mean, and do you think at that point that you believe that, or was that just something you were saying, or is it something you truly desired?
I think at some points, all three.
Mm-hmm.
At some points, I was just saying it because I was conditioned. I conditioned myself to say that shit because I looked up to my dad so much and I wanted to be just like him. That, like, I just assumed to be like him, I had to be like him. I had to go through the same steps. So I didn't think like I could correct it or that I needed to correct it, because then it goes back to like having that, like, he always had this strong willpower to get up and like live no matter what. So then I was just like, well, like, whatever, you can survive anything. And in some ways I still have that mentality, like, no matter, you'll get through it no matter what, and you will. Give it time and you'll get there. But I don't think I ever understood the fear side of it. Like, people live their life in fear and scared of going away and scared of losing time and scared of losing freedom and scared whatever, just living in a lot of fear. Like, I didn't ever have that fear because I expected it.
Mm.
And in some ways I still carry like not towards that, but there's some like in my work, for instance, like I don't fear an outcome because I understand that there's going to be there's going to be an outcome and it's going to be good no matter what. And at the end of the day, like it's a perspective thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your perspective is that the outcome is bad, then the outcome is bad. You're grading yourself all the time.
Mm. So to clarify on that, that's if you made a mistake versus did a good job.
Yeah, and I feel like in the world, 90% of 90% of what it means to do a good job is what you tell yourself. Because who cares what anybody else says? Like, truly, who cares? And have you ever tried to tell somebody else what you think? Like, they don't care. So why
they
should
do,
you?
but they they don't want to hear it.
No. But they don't care about it from that standpoint either. Like, you could see somebody in the act and they're messing up, and maybe their perspective is that just like mine, like they're gonna get through it, and they're gonna handle it like that. They're just gonna get through it, and that's where they are in their head. And you can see from afar because your perspective is from a different angle. Hey, like slow down, like you could do this a little bit different. You're like, yeah, because you have a different perspective. You don't understand their tackle it perspective. They might be taking the hardest thing first, and that's the way they're going to tackle it. Your perspective is different, so you can try to intervene, and depending on how that person's self-worth is, if you will, or their confidence, or whatever those weird things come into play, like, you could say it and they're not going to listen to it and they're not going to care, and they will blatantly do the opposite thing that you tell them just because. Just like that's just like a human thing, I guess. I don't know.
I'll show you.
Yeah. And it might bother them even later, like when they go home and they're laying in bed and they're thinking about the day, whatever. Like, it'll bother them then for a second, on an emotional level or some kind of mental level. I don't know what to call that, but other than that, they're gonna fall asleep and their pride's gonna kick in, and so it doesn't matter.
So, and it's interesting because I'm sure there's other people that would be upset that someone didn't catch them.
Yeah.
And where do you think that stems from? I mean, we're just speculating here because you don't have that mentality. I'm assuming, but from what you're saying.
I don't know. Some of these patterns, like I said, you see patterns in the world. And I feel like a lot of those things are in correlation with the way you were parented. Like, because you see some parents that are always catching their kids, and so their belief is that somebody's going to catch them. And that's like the exact opposite of what my world is. Like, nobody caught me, everybody let me fucking hit my head and get up. Don't fucking cry. And that's the way it was for me and for other kids. Like, I was never raised like that, but I see kids, or even now that I'm an adult, and I see kids that are like that and they're constantly being caught. I can imagine that as an adult, their perspective is going to be that somebody's supposed to be there as a guardrail. But why the fuck should I be your guardrail? And that's my mentality because that was the mentality that surrounded me. There was no fucking guardrail.
And that in itself, I mean, just from my perspective anyway, is that's going back to what your inner world is going to reflect the outer world. And I do feel that those type of people that have had people catch them every time, that creates an openness, a window, or an opportunity for someone to step in. They're open to that correction, or being caught in some way or whatever, because their belief is someone's always going to catch me. So just as you were saying, your agreements and your beliefs of you were going to go to prison because that's what you needed to do to be like your dad, someone's always going to catch me, so someone's going to.
But are they really open to the correction, or are they just living under the illusion that they're going to make it to 100 off of somebody else's word? Because to me, that's what that amounts to. Like, you're going to get caught, and you're going to get caught, and you're always going to expect to be caught. And in a lot of ways, like, you could live your life like that, and you will be caught. Until that wheelchair catches your ass at 7 years old.
So you think that mentality in itself is this, and this is just me speculating, this is a handing off of accountability and responsibility?
I think so, and I think they're okay with it. And at some point you gotta pay your price. I think no matter what, there's a price to pay, and I'm not talking about money or anything like that. There's always a cost, whatever that cost may be. Like, that's not for me to determine. But yeah, you could live your whole life. You could live 20 years and get right to retirement. And then if you lived your whole life, through your whole career, on the idea that somebody's going to catch you, and because you got this openness to correction, you're basically living your life through everybody else's lens, because you're allowing them to use your lens. And so, yeah, you might seem open to correction, but what is that correction, and who are you to tell me what that correction is? So, like, if you find a way to see how this is in weird territory, because I don't understand this is just watching from the outside. Like, there's people who get to positions that you're like, what, how'd you get there? But that comes back to that kind of belief, like you're constantly being caught as a child. So as an adult, you understand how to be caught as a child, and you're open to somebody else's perspective, you're open to somebody else's suggestion, and then you could be molded into whatever. And so that person enjoys the fact that they can puppeteer you. And so, like, are you really living your own life? And are you open to suggestion? Or what does that really mean?
You're open to being molded and not having a solid foundation within yourself.
Yeah, and if that's who you are at your core, like,
you don't know who you are at your core.
I
mean, I'm not saying you specifically, but in living through that lens that you're saying, you don't really know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know, but it doesn't seem right to me. Like, if you fall and you bump your head and you got to pick yourself up back up off the ground, like, you know who you are. You know what it took to get off the ground, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like, you had to pick yourself up, and nobody carried you. Nobody gave you a perspective. Like, if anything, like in my situation, I wish I would have had a perspective. Because if I would have, like, my perspective wouldn't have been, oh, I'm gonna go to prison. Like, that's what I'm gonna do as an adult. That'll be cool. Cause that shit wasn't cool.
Newsflash.
But like, if I don't know, life is weird. Life is crazy like that. If I wish somebody would have, like, and
would you have listened though?
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't have listened at all. Because somewhere in my core, like, I am who I am, and like that's just it.
Your mind was made up.
Yeah.
And no one could change it.
No.
It's a double-edged sword, if you will.
Yeah.
It's your best quality and worst quality sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how life is.
Yep.
It's always a gift and a curse.
That was funny. It was not cool.
No. Not at all.
Well, at least you can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
There's some space between here and there. How do you think that strong foundation within yourself has benefited you in your life? What have you gained from it? As like an example. It's okay to brag.
Honestly, I think just the knowledge. That's the thing that I pride myself on the most, is like my willpower and the knowledge that I carry. And it's given me this weird, it's giving me like a weird ability to know shit and just see stuff from different perspectives all on my own. I don't need somebody from a distance to come in and give me their perspective and try to puppeteer me. Like, I can see things from multiple perspectives all on my own, which helps me see things more clearly, faster. But not only that, like, when things do get blurry, like my willpower from falling and getting back up and falling and getting back up, like, I know I'm gonna get back up. I'm not scared of falling. That's gonna happen. Like, that also gives me a drive, like a no fear drive. Like, I'm gonna go. So I can see things, and if I can't see it, I'm willing to bump my head. Like, all right, cool, let's bump the head and we'll figure this out. And so, like, all of that relieves me of like my anxieties and my stresses. I'm not saying that I don't have those, but like it alleviates a lot of that, so I can just go for it because I'm not worried about failure. Failure is inevitable. Like, that's gonna happen. That's just a perspective thing. Like, who's gonna tell me I'm a failure?
What do you consider failures then, quote unquote failures? What would it actually be for you?
I think in my life, failures are like loving the wrong people, but like that's hard to say too, because you want to love somebody and you trust them and you hold them dear to you. You want to see the best, but they don't necessarily love you the same, and they don't necessarily hold you dearly, and they don't necessarily care about your future or who you are or who you're going to become or any of that. So like, is it a failure? Like those lives have to separate at some point, and so like I think that is like a failure. Like you couldn't correct it, you couldn't, like and then at the end all you can do is take that insight, and even with the insight, like, does it make you a better person or does it make you a worse person? Because now you question everybody. So does that make you better or does that make you worse? That's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you were at your natural state and you were carefree and you were loving and you were kind and you were generous and you were all the things that you are as a human being, like when that's taken from you, like that's like a failure. Like it's hard to get that back. And even if you work at it and you want that and you try for it, there's always going to be something there that's not right.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's kind of going back to your fear. How do you overcome these fear of falling? You know, we're going to use that as a metaphor for anything. You said you've fallen before and you know that you'll get back up. How do you push past that and catch yourself in those moments?
Like I said, I think the knowledge is what I carry. So like I try to, like out of those failures, that's where you learned your biggest lesson, or where I learned my biggest lessons, like is about the heart and the mind, like, and the soul and other people's hearts, minds, and souls. And so taking that knowledge and taking those perspectives, like, I gotta trust myself, because one of two things is gonna happen. Either I'm gonna gain more knowledge and perspective, or it's gonna work out. So one way or another, there's no failure for me.
It can only be good from here.
From everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me what I thought a failure was. Like, I guess if I have to answer that question, like I think that disconnect in life is a failure. Because if everything's connected at the point of disconnect, like that's a failure.
So the only true failure is believing there's a failure.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, that's easy. Wham bam, we figured it out. All right, that's the meaning of life, right?
I guess so.
We're done here. All right, well, this was fast. I see. So reminding yourself that you'll get knowledge out of this. You'll get some sort of experience. I'm just trying to sum that up in, an easy to remind yourself kind of thing, like a phrase, like you'll get something good from this, whether it's, it's just as a reminder for everyone to, if you do quote, have this fear of failure, a reminder would be there's really no such thing as failure. There's just gaining knowledge or, your expected outcome. One of the two, if it's desirable.
This might be cliche, but for me, I like Nike clothes, and they go through a lot of fucking bullshit with politics or whatever. Like, they're just trying to sell something, and they're trying to find the right branding to sell their shit. But if you pay attention to their logos, like, that's it. Like, that's legit. Like, they legit have the shit. Just do it.
Just do it.
Check that shit off the list. Just do it.
Yeah.
That's real. Like that. Like, and everybody's walking around with that shit on, and the message is everywhere. You don't have to look far. No.
Just do it.
That's it.
Simply put.
Yeah. I wish it was mine. Then I could market it and make that money, but
they beat you to it.
They did.
They had a few years on you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Thank you for letting me tap into your mind for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the patrons will appreciate it, or, whoever decides to listen. Thank you.
You're welcome.